Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Just getting a few things set up here. This is Tom Froming. The channel is TF Twins. Again, thanks for coming and hanging out on draft night. Fun night as always, and an unpredictable night as always. Amateur baseball certainly doesn't get as big of a spotlight as, the football or basketball. But I feel like it's kind of growing each year, and it was nice to see. I'm not sure if the date change really matters a lot, but I think they've put more into it. There's kind of more hyping and making it more into an event, and I think it'd be cool if that continues forward. So very fun, because just even if you're not, I should probably start out by saying I'm not some kind of like a draft guru or amateur baseball expert or anything. But even if you're not really all that knowledgeable on these players, but you brush up a little bit on the storylines, the fun thing, if we're just going to take a step outside of the Twins for one moment, the fun thing is how unpredictable this all is. And that was the case. That was the case here. I don't think anybody would have predicted that Brooks Lee would have been there for the Twins at 8. We'll kind of get into all that in just a moment here. As you can see, I've got the chat on the screen. So as you're chatting, I think there's a bit of a delay, but that'll pop up. So, definitely if you've got questions or anything, but also talk amongst yourselves too. I really encourage that. This is a place for, me to kind of chat about what's going on, but it's also a place for some just good general conversation to be going on too. If you don't have stuff about the draft, that's fine too. That's going to be our main topic of conversation as we go here. But in case you missed it, the Twins took Brooks Lee at number 8 overall, a guy who was a consensus top 5 pick pretty much. I believe we'll get into that in a moment, but I think he was on most, if you combine all the lists, he was like 4th, and he falls to 8 to the Twins out of Cal Poly. So let me pull up some resources here. And we'll take a look at some of the information on Lee from pre-draft. And then we'll talk a bit about kind of maybe 8th overall pick history. If you don't follow things as closely, like what are we looking at here? What's kind of typical? But I wanted to share. There we go. So Jamie Cameron over at Twins Daily put together, this is a consensus big board. So this is combining the rankings from The Athletic, ESPN, MLB Pipeline, Baseball America, and Prospects Live. Basically just combines all of those to give you one nice big board is what the goal of this was. So you're really getting a lot of sources in here. And it was Drew Jones, Jackson Holliday, Tamar Johnson, who were 3 of the top 4 picks, along with Kumar Rocker, which was a surprise. We'll get to more of that in a second. And then number 4 was Brooks Lee. So the consensus number 4 guy, again, you see here, high was 2. I believe that was Baseball America. And the lowest any of those sources had him as was the 5th best player in the draft. So the Twins, by that standard, by all the analysis heading into the draft rankings, they appear to have really landed a very nice value at 8. And again, there were 2 surprises before it got to the Twins that made me feel really good about the chances that they were going to get a very nice pick here. One was Kumar Rocker going to the Rangers. And I'm not saying that these were like reaches or they're going to be busts. We don't know. That's the fun thing about the draft too. Maybe Kumar Rocker is going to be the best guy in the draft and he's going to get to the major leagues quickly. We don't know. But that was a surprise, him going 3rd to Texas. And then this guy, Cade Horton, going 7th to the Cubs. Really, the Rocker pick caught my intrigue. And then Horton going to the Cubs is part of how the Twins ended up with Lee. And happy that they did, even though, you could certainly say this was a pretty Falvey Levine era pick. It's a bat, basically, and he's a shortstop now. They expect him to be able to play average defense at 2nd or 3rd base. Somebody who is ranked, in the top 5 is going to be a bat only, like Aaron Sabato type. No, that's not the extent that we're looking at here. But his best tool is by far his hit tool. So that certainly kind of aligns with Falvey Levine. But they also, it's really easy to say that they also just went best value here, which I think is more often than not the best thing that you want to do, especially in the MLB. There's been some very positive talk about his proximity as well. I think Jonathan Mayo said he was his pick to reach the majors first, but you don't want to put too much stock into that. You don't want to draft because of your major league need or anything like that. But it's nice, you'd rather have that than not, So, and we'll get to this more in looking back at some of the history of the 8th overall pick. But if you have a guy that you feel pretty certain is going to hit well, and that's the tool that you're most comfortable with, that's probably, I would say, maybe the most sticky tool that a guy's going to retain, from his amateur profile through, is if he can hit. So I'm not, over the moon about Brooks Lee. I think at the number 8th overall pick, I think that's great. I think they had great value. I'm excited about it. And in fact, I got to flex on you guys. I got to flex on you, bear with, I'm sorry. Sometimes, I just got to show off some stuff, since I've got connections, I just got to show you that I am the proud owner of the first Brooks Lee jersey. You see that? Number one, because he's the first round pick. Okay. Well, sorry. Well, the first Brooks Lee jersey. I'm going to put it on now too. So, don't be jealous. Don't be jealous. There we go. All right. Now that I've got my Brooks Lee swag on. All right. Yeah, I mean, anytime you get a guy, and he's a switch hitter, again, he's going to be an infielder. Probably won't be a shortstop, but he's going to be an infielder. It's great. It's great. We are not actually. That's funny. The Reds just picked Cam Collier. That was the guy that I probably was kind of hoping that the Twins would get at 8. So what do I know? He goes all the way to 18. But now the thing about Cam Collier is I really like pitching, catching, shortstop, center field. Though I would elevate those positions as maybe more of a tiebreaker, not to push them up over guys who are grading out clearly above them. But Cam Collier wasn't that either. He's a third baseman, and he might have to move to first base or a corner outfield too. So, I think there's still going to be a lot of good. This isn't one of the best setups the Twins have had. They have a second round pick and then a comp B pick. There's still going to be some good talent at those two picks for, pitching, catcher, shortstop, center field types. And that's, if we're talking about kind of going forward here, that's what I would like to see the Twins do. I would like to see them from here. And again, you don't want to draft based on, I don't think you ever want to draft based on need or based on trying to address what you have in your system, really. But I do think you want to draft a class that makes sense. So to me, after picking Brooks Lee, this really highly touted bat out of college who's very polished and, could really make his way through the system quickly. I think you kind of try to maybe dock guys who have that kind of same profile to where, if you have a couple guys ranked pretty close to each other, you might go toward a pitcher in the next pick or one of the next two picks. They should definitely take a pitcher in one of their next two picks. I know a lot of people will be frustrated they didn't take a pitcher here, but this was just not really a good pitcher draft in general. From everything I'd heard in particular, and that's really bearing true as well. It looks like there's only been 4 pitchers drafted thus far. And again, one of them was Cade Horton, who was considered a pretty big reach. I mean, Kumar Rocker was considered a pretty big reach as well. Looks like Gabriel Hughes was ranked quite a bit lower. But, maybe those teams, just prioritize pitching, and that's what they were looking for more. I think Kevin Parada from Georgia Tech, who went 11th to the Mets, would have also, kind of been a guy that I mentioned catching. I think, it's never a bad idea to draft catching, whether you really are you like the Twins' current catching situation or guys that they have in the pipeline, or you don't. I think regardless of that, targeting some catching is always a good idea. You need a lot of catchers. It's a position that's not super easy to find. But we'll see what they do. That's kind of the next question is what do they do next? But again, I think, it would have been more surprising if the Twins hadn't taken Brooks Lee than if they had, considering. And we looked at the consensus big board, but Aaron Gleeman here from The Athletic broke it down. Number 2 overall ranked by Baseball America, 5th by The Athletic. Keith Law, I think, is who puts that list together. 5 by MLB.com and 6 by ESPN. So, you get that guy at number 8, you feel pretty good about it. Yeah, and Aaron notes here that he's likely to end up. Oh, I got to switch that over. My bad. You can't see that. I got too excited. About showing off my Lee jersey. I should show that again for anybody just showing up. That's right. Brooks Lee, be jealous. I bet you his mom doesn't even have a Brooks Lee Twins jersey yet. All right. So, yeah, there's Aaron dropping knowledge on where he's ranking. Yeah, and then one of the top all-around hitters in college baseball, likely to end up at second base or third base. So let's kind of roll this back a little bit, and we'll get it. I will talk about Lee, and I'll show some highlights, and hopefully I won't get in trouble for doing that. But we will see there. But I want to just kind of pull this back a bit, and not just this is more like just to throw cold water in our faces here. And kind of get an idea of what a number 8 overall pick can look like. Not to doom this pick or anything, but here is the most, just being real. Well, here's the most recent number 8 overall picks in the draft. And of course, your most recent guys aren't going to be having debuted yet. And in fact, one of them didn't even sign. Josh Young is a really good prospect for the Rangers, but he's hurt. He could be something real nice. I like him quite a bit. And Robert Hassel is a very highly touted prospect for the Padres. But those guys are still working their way up. But if we look through here, it's kind of underwhelming. It's kind of underwhelming. We have some, Francisco Lindor, obviously a franchise-changing player who went at number 8 overall back in 2011. You get some solid, guys who had major league careers going on here, and Kyle Freeland and Mike Leake. But also a lot of kind of blah. And of course, even at number 8, you're not guaranteed that these guys are even going to reach the majors. In terms of the Twins, Todd Walker was the number 8 overall pick. A guy who was very solid for them for many years, but certainly not any kind of a superstar. But Todd Helton, if we want, I think he must be the top guy in terms of WAR. We're at Baseball Reference here, in case you were curious where you can find stuff like this. Yeah, Todd Helton is the best number 8 overall pick ever, and that guy was amazing. Bell, really good for the Pirates. He's actually the Twins draft pick as well. Nice career with the Pirates primarily, played elsewhere. And then Lindor. Jim Abbott, nice. He was number 8. So, I saw some people were getting pretty far ahead of themselves, I would say. But I will also say, thinking about this from like a prospect list perspective. And again, I have to do, I'm familiar somewhat with Brooks Lee, but I'm going to have to do a lot more digging in on him and looking at some more video and reading up on him some more. But like my knee-jerk reaction as to where he probably fits on a Twins prospect list right now is second. On my list, ahead of Austin Martin and behind Royce Lewis. So I'm not going to say don't get excited about this guy. That's a nice spot to be in. And again, I think the Twins did very nice to get him with the overall pick. But that's just my rant on the crap shootiness of the draft. So much is hard to predict. There's going to be guys that go way late that end up having great careers. There's going to be guys that go really early that don't make it to the major leagues. It does seem like it gets easier. Maybe that's with technology or just investment in scouting and drafting and measurables too. You can get an actual measurement on so many things these days that it has to help with this kind of stuff with scouting. So it does seem like it's becoming a bit less of a complete, I don't want to say complete guessing game, but it's a little bit shoot than I think it once was, but it's still, we're talking about kids here. And maybe that's part of what hurt Cam Collier. He's like 17. Born in November of 2004. My goodness. If you don't want to feel old, don't look at draft. Because, there was Matt Holliday's kid went first overall. Andrew Jones's kid went second overall. Yeah, if you don't want to feel old, don't look into the draft stuff. All right. Let me take a look here. And actually, I'm going to read through some of the chat. And while I'm doing that, I won't just sit here and drool. I'll try to put something on. Again, I'm sure if I might get in trouble for putting some of this on. So if the stream briefly, abruptly ends here, you'll know why. And I'm not sure you're going to get this audio either. So again, that was Jonathan Mayo talking about Brooks Lee. And let me know if you could hear that in the chat or if it was way too loud. Isaac here. Oh, did I get to the bottom? I think I did. No, that's the top. I got it on top one way, on bottom the other way. But Isaac here threw out some good. This is sometimes, I think, a good way to kind of talk about similarities of guys. Is, let's comp them to someone we're familiar with. On this channel, obviously, we cover tons of the Twins minor league system. And I don't think, obviously from their amateur profiles, Lee has a much, much, much higher profile than Spencer Steer did. But if we're talking about what kind of a player he is, I do think that seems like a pretty fair comp. If you're just trying to wrap your head around who is this guy, what does he look like? He does seem like a Spencer Steer type guy. But I do think his profile is higher than that. Some of the stuff that I've heard about, and this isn't a comp. This is maybe more of a background comp. Some of the, you hear a lot about how his dad's a hitting coach and he just grew up in a hitting cage. That reminds me some of Alex Kirilloff, whose dad is a big hitting guru. And some of the talk about how much of a natural hitter he is and how just his bat to ball skills are incredible. Lee's a switch hitter though. That's a big deal. But that's another guy that we're familiar with, Alex Kirilloff. That's sort of when I hear those things about Lee that I kind of think he's like an Alex Kirilloff kid who had a dad who just was a hitting guru. And John says he's happy with Brooks Lee. Yeah, and again, I think there's good reason to be happy. And hi, John. Sorry, I missed you coming in. I always like to start these out a little bit hot, maybe not jumping right into the big conversation, because I know a lot of people catch these on replay. So I want to make sure, we got a good pace early on to anybody watching on replay, not hanging out live. So just kind of, again, jumping back into the chat. Yeah, and there's some kind of some Austin Martin mentions in there. And I think it's important to note that Austin Martin was a number 5 overall pick. I think it's important to note, he's still developing. This is only Austin's second full pro season. And it's so funny. I was the low man on him coming into the year, and now I feel like I'm like defending him now. I don't think Martin's going to live up to what kind of was expected of him at the time of the draft, or even at the time of the Brios trade. But I don't think there's any reason we look at Austin Martin, who he is today, and kind of think that's what he is for good. Oh, thanks for the laugh. I hope that was a good laugh for you guys with my awesome jersey. John is envious. I mean, I'm sorry to flex on you. I'm sorry, but sometimes you got to do it. I don't have many jersey takes, by the way, but I do wish, I don't want these back full time, the pinstripes, but I do wish they would wear them, every so often. Rotate them in. It's a classic. John, Twins just need to hit on draft picks. That's true. Not the dumbest idea to have a high floor hitting prospects. Let's take risks on pitchers. Yeah. And like I said, I'm kind of curious at what they do from here. Actually, let me make sure where we're at on the draft tracker before I get carried away. Then again, if they would have taken a pitcher, and it would have been like, maybe risk or a guy, again, we haven't even mentioned the bonus pools. Like if they would have had a pitcher in mind where they could maybe get him to sign under slot, and they had somebody else in mind that they could swing that money over to, I could have seen the logic in that, because, you can never have too much pitching. So I'm sure there are people who are a little bummed out, a little sore about the Twins not having taken a pitcher. I totally get the Brooks Lee pick. I think it's one of the hardest picks, I think, of the draft to second guess, is how I guess I would put it so far, just given his profile and that he slipped down to 8. But I still, I can't, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong if you felt like the Twins should have just taken whoever was the top pitcher on their board. Because again, nobody's ever had too much pitching. I thought it was hilarious. Oh, and I see that now the Angels took shortstop Zach Neto, who I actually like quite a bit. But last year, the Angels, every pick they had, every single pick, not even exaggeration, they took a pitcher with every single pick that they took. I thought that was hilarious, and I thought that was like, hey, man, no one's gonna be able to accuse you for not coming out of the draft with enough pitching. I thought that was awesome. If the Twins did that, I would be like, whatever, Hey, you at least you check the pitching box. But again, I think Brooks Lee was a pretty knockout of the park pick. I do hope that they focus that he's your high floor guy, kind of. He's like John says here, a high floor hitting prospect, a guy who has a really dependable tool. A hit tool is, I think, the most dependable one, and not just power, an actual hit tool. So I think that's a nice pick. But I do hope that they target more pitching in particular, and maybe more positional, shortstop, center field, catcher. I'm just always going to like that. But yeah, nothing not to like. Why did the Twins not take the catcher? I don't think there were probably some rankings, I'm sure, that had Parada above Lee, but that wasn't the consensus. That wasn't the conventional wisdom. I don't think that Parada was as a knockout of the park catcher enough, or that the Twins have an organizational need all that bad at catcher that you would want to go out and draft a guy. Their numbers 8 and 9 round picks last year were both catchers, in Noah Cardenas and Pat Winkle. Now, obviously, 8th and 9th round is a lot different than 8th overall. So I'm not going to say, hey, they addressed catcher last year. They're fine there. But catching throughout the system, I know that the prospect lists don't have a lot of high-ranking catchers on them, but I wouldn't be shocked if somebody comes out of this system Maybe in kind of a vein of like a Mitch Garver. Now, Mitch Garver did have a nice prospect profile for a while, but he was behind, Spencer Turner. And look how that worked out. And Mitch Garver is, a major league catcher, and Spencer, I feel like I'm saying his name wrong, but it was Stuart Turner. It was Stuart Turner, wasn't it? He didn't make it. I feel like there's probably an unheralded catcher in the system who's going to emerge. I don't know who it is, but there's a lot of guys. Investing a number 8 pick would have certainly helped. I'm not going to say that it's not, but I don't feel like the catching situation is so dire with the Twins that they needed to do that. I also think a lot of catchers develop really late. You think about like Joey Bart, who's the second overall pick, who's not really caught on with the Giants. There's a lot of other examples. Travis d'Arnaud was a big prospect for the Blue Jays and never really stuck. And then he went to Tampa Bay and didn't even stick there until he went to Atlanta now, and he's an all-star. There's so many catchers that don't, kind of their first run, their first team that they're with, until they've reached free agency or whatever, get close, they don't really click. It takes some catchers a lot longer to develop. So I think, if you always want to be, again, I think a consistent investment in bringing in catching is good, but, I don't think that's a place you want to jump out. And then number 2, my second point on that, catchers developing slowly, is that I think it's a pretty good position to address in free agency. I think your investment there is better off than some of the other free agent spots. Or in the trade market. The Yankees basically gave the Twins Gary Sanchez. He's not some superstar anymore or anything like that, but he's perfectly fine major league catcher. You could do better, you could do worse. Certainly, it'd be nice to have a good kind of tandem catcher with him, and Jeffers hasn't really caught on like we'd like. But yeah, I think that's it's great to have a guy in your system who's a catcher of the future type. But I think, it's a position you can address otherwise. Isn't like Wilson Contreras going to be a free agent? Whatever. And then especially, with the whole Correa situation, if he leaves, they'll have lots of money to throw around potentially. And John says seems to get a lot of trading catchers. I mean, it's certainly a position where there's a lot of interest. There's always going to be a lot of teams that are interested. And I will say too, like if the Twins, I didn't like what they did with the catcher position this offseason that much. But if you feel like if they didn't like the overall catching situation, they wouldn't have traded both Mitch Garver and Ben Rortvedt. And I know Ben Rortvedt's been hurt this year, but you still have, he has a bunch of team control. So they really took a long hit to their long-term catching situation. And getting Gary in the short term was nice, but yeah. And Josiah saying, he's hearing that Lee might stick at shortstop. I'm kind of hearing the opposite, but I haven't seen him play in the field all that much, really at all. So I'm not gonna. But all I can say is I've certainly read people have indicated that it seems like by the time he gets to the majors, at least he'll probably be a second base, third baseman. That doesn't mean the Twins are going to start him out there. In fact, I like the idea of starting a guy out at shortstop. If that's what he's coming out of college and you think there's a sliver of a chance he might stick there, go ahead and put him out there, and until it's clear that he can't play the position or he gets to a level where there's someone else who's so much better and you obviously can't have two guys playing the same position. Why not? Just keep him there. Zach doesn't like all the middle infielders. Well, if you think about it, like a lot of the best athletes are playing shortstop, right? So naturally, those are going to be the guys that are going to be, your first round type, your big talents. So I would imagine, a lot of, there's been, how many shortstops have there been? Tamar Johnson's listed as a shortstop. Brooks Lee is a shortstop. Zach Neto is a shortstop. Jet Williams is a shortstop. Cole Young is a shortstop. So we're only at pick 22. And what was it, like 5 shortstops? So, yeah, and, hardly anybody can actually stick at shortstop in the major league. The bar to clear to be a major league shortstop is unbelievably high still. So, if you draft 5 shortstops, maybe one of them will be a major league shortstop. The other guys are moving to second, third base, whatever. We talked about Steer. John is surprised by my statement that he feels like he'll probably slot in at 2. To me right now, his bat looks like a higher upside than Steer, Strand Martin. Well, I mean, you have to take into account other things too. The problem with Christian Encarnacion Strand is he is committed to over 20 errors at third base. There's a lot of questions about him being able to play third base. If he can't play there, he's going to be probably a first base DH guy. That's just not a position that's hard to fill. Now, if he's going to hit like 40 bombs or whatever, who cares? Whatever. DH him. Who cares at that point? And, him doing what he's doing at Double-A now is really kind of an eye-opening situation. I wasn't too surprised that he was just wrecking the Midwest League. But he was just drafted in the 4th round last year. And that's maybe, that's a great conversation to slide into, where I kind of threw cold water on like, hey, here's the number 8 overall picks and kind of how overall underwhelming, we'll say, the whole kind of backlog is of number 8 overall picks. But then we can kind of pump that back. And of course, Christian Encarnacion Strand hasn't proven anything yet. He's a guy who's only on Double-A. But this is a guy drafted in the 4th round, let alone in the 1st round, let alone in the top 8 picks, who's already in Double-A and is crushing. He did for the cycle today. If you guys missed it, I already did the system recap. Don't go now. But once you're done here, check that out. So yeah, that's for the flip side is that, okay, maybe some of these guys don't turn into anything. Maybe by this time next year, there's a guy who they pick in the 4th round who's looking like, a beast in Double-A. But again, that limits Strand's overall kind of future value grade. His muddies up his profile. Austin Martin, again, I'm not as high on him as a lot of people have been. To me, he seems like he's more athletic than Brooks Lee. And I think Austin Martin, I don't think he's a shortstop, but if he winds up elsewhere, like I've been saying, center field is not easy to find guys. And I think he could probably play there. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I will start to think of him is maybe what I'll put at Brooks Lee. Whether he ends up at 2, I don't know. Cause again, I don't, still have some research to do on him. I'm also I need Austin Martin to come back. He's on the IL. I need to look at him some more as well. Yeah, Zach points out the number 1 need for the last ever has been pitching. True. True. And I hope that they focus on that in this next couple picks they have tonight. But again, I can't take any, and the thing to remember is too, you can turn Brooks Lee into pitching potentially. They traded their 1st round pick from last year, Chase Petty, for Sonny Gray. Obviously that's a pitcher for a pitcher. But maybe that's the thought process. It's like, let's get the guy who has the most, believable kind of consistent high floor tool who we think can move the quickest through the system, and we could just cash him out. At the point that Brooks Lee is ready, at the point that he's looking like other teams will buy into him, if we're looking at it and he's a second baseman, third baseman, we got those spots covered, we'll just cash him out for a pitcher then. And then we can have the benefit of having this pitcher having gone through. This is a major league pitcher, maybe like a Sonny Gray. I understand Sonny Gray hasn't been pitching very well of late, but it's entirely possible that that's who could do it. So that's another thing too to keep in mind when you talk about trying to draft the best value, get the most value out of your picks, is that could potentially help you turn those guys into something else. Is if you're getting that value, it doesn't mean you're like stuck holding the bag and you have to pigeonhole them into something that makes sense in your system. You could have that value and turn it around for something else down the road. At least that's my line of thinking. Again, anybody who makes these points about pitching, I can't disagree with you. But I still think it doesn't make sense to go with the best available pitcher if you feel like he's that big of a gap between him and Brooks Lee, which I think was the case. Again, I am not some kind of a amateur baseball guru, a scout who would know better enough of like, oh no, this guy was a better pitcher than Brooks Lee. It's going to be. But obviously the Twins, and a lot of the reporting that came out early has been the Twins were actually shocked that Lee fell to them. But yeah, as far as pitchers go, man, I can't disagree with anybody that just felt like they had to take pitching. All right, and thanks for giving me the heads up. That video we played did not have sound, but that was Jonathan Mayo was calling Brooks Lee the most likely guy to reach the majors first out of this class. Basically, was sort of the main one. I might have to run a poll of if I should give Bob a timeout. Bob's one of the more vocal commenters on the channel, but yeah. John, pinstripes are the best jersey. John. Again, I kind of like a mix. I like that they have a lot of different looks that they can go with these days. But like, why can't this be one of them? Like, I'm not asking for this to come back as the main jersey if that's not what they want. That's fine. Again, I wouldn't hate that either. But like, we can't mix this thing in like 10 times a season. It's a good jersey. Part of me, kind of thinks like, oh, pinstripes. You're trying to look like the Yankees. That's kind of don't love that. Don't want to think about the Yankees if I cannot. So maybe that's why I liked the change initially when they first got rid of these. I was like, all right, I'm kind of done with the pinstripes. But I guess I'm fickle. I was good when they left. Now I want them back. I can't decide. Meet me halfway and give me these 10 times a year and I'll be happy. I think that would be cool. And especially like if you could tie it into some kind of like a World Series recognition weekend or whatever, recognizing those teams and like, hey, we're going to wear the pinstripes. Well, it was the jersey they won both World Series. They were wearing these at the time. So Sean asks, why was Smeltzer set down? It might have had to do with some of the timing of who they had, and he wasn't going to be available since he just pitched, and they were bringing oh my gosh, this is why live streaming's tough. Archer. I forgot Chris Archer's name for a minute there, you guys. Ooh, it's rough. So they needed to bring Archer back, and with the break, Devin Smeltzer might like take the next turn that he would have had. We'll see, but he had not been pitching as well of late. We'll see, but we'll see Devin. Definitely. He'll be, he's one of the, even if he's going to go down to St. Paul and he makes it there and that's where his next start is. He's, so many injuries, so many guys going down. As long as he stays healthy, he'll continue to get opportunities for sure. Yeah, and Robinson says Lee's good defensively. I don't know what you're talking about. Hey, again, that's what I've been hearing more is that he'll more than likely end up at second or third base. And again, like I said, it is like damn near impossible to be a major league shortstop. Like I said, we have 5 or 6 guys now that have been drafted as shortstops in the first round of the draft, and maybe like one of them will make it as a shortstop. And you think about all the guys, we've mentioned Nick Gordon, not a shortstop in the major leagues, or not an everyday shortstop at least. Wasn't Brian Dozier was drafted as a shortstop, right? Just so many guys who are drafted as shortstop end up elsewhere. It's very difficult. It's a very high bar. So I'm not saying like he can't. Like I think he should start his minor league career out at shortstop for sure, and keep working on him until then. And like even though I don't think Austin Martin. There's like maybe a 5% chance. I think Austin Martin could make it as a shortstop. I'm still fine with him playing shortstop in Double-A. Because like, hey, there's 5%. They're still at 5% chance. So why not? And I think if you move Austin Martin, he's looked pretty good at second base. And I think if you moved him to center field, it's not like it'd be some kind of like a gigantic learning curve. Now people are like probably laughing at me after Royce Lewis got injured like instantly after going out to center field. But Martin has some more outfield experience than Lewis has had. Right. I wonder how I can get audio on this. I swear I've done that before. Because I have some stuff. Oh, no. Maybe I'll... I'm sure it's riveting to watch me scroll through the chat. I'm sure you're all having a great time. Because I can hear it. I'm looking for some highlights instead of chatting. I'm sure most of you have scoured the internet to look at some if you haven't seen them yet. There we go. Here's one. And again, I'm probably not supposed to do this, but we're going to do it anyway. Support MLB. Support Rob Manfred. So there's the swing from the left side. Again, this is a guy's a switch hitter. And the swing from the right side. Yeah, and they just mentioned on this one, most likely to move off of shortstop over to third to take advantage of his arm. So that's good. I mean, you'd rather that than have him switch over to second base. I think on the sort of defensive spectrum, I do think third base is above second base. You'd rather have a guy with a good arm. Yeah, let's pull that up too. Yeah, and he's good size too. So, you don't think that more for, and I think most people have projected him to be pretty maxed out physically, that they don't expect him to grow a whole lot. But you never know. I mean, it's not all that unusual that people, get bigger in their early 20s. So this is Brooks Lee's baseball reference page. And as you see, they have him listed at 6'2", 205. And what I wanted to take a look at in particular is, there's a lot of talk about his performance in the Cape Cod League from last year, kind of pushing him forward additionally. That's a wood bat league. It's a very highly talented league, a summer league. And he crushed 405, 432, 667 with 6 home runs in 1 games. Yeah, that's a nice little showing for him there. All right, probably should keep track of where the draft is going. I know a lot of people have complained about the pace of the draft. It looks like they're only on the 25th pick. But I think, there should be some time devoted to all these guys in the draft and the first round in particular. It'll pick up in the second round. And then tomorrow it'll be like faster than they can even keep up with on the broadcast. They'll have to they'll be like 5 picks behind when they're talking about guys as they go through. That's maybe more so on day 3, but you'll see the pace really picks up later. So, these guys are all first round picks. It's all these teams' first pick in the draft, except for what the Mets had too. And like I said, I like that they're trying to turn the draft into more of, an event, more of a show, more of something people can watch live and enjoy. And I had a great time. I couldn't go live. I was putting my kids to bed, taking care of all that stuff, bedtime stuff, getting them ready. So when I was going down, and that was going down live because it was exciting to follow. Very surprised the Kumar Rocker pick at 3. Again, shocking because of all of the analysis coming into the draft. I'm not all that shocked that Texas would, find a player like him intriguing, and they also maybe were going to not give him full slot. He didn't, after being drafted last year. I don't think he has a whole lot of leverage. We'll see. All that stuff's hard to speculate on too. There's certainly guys that the Twins have drafted in the past who, there's been some speculation they would go under slot, and they went at slot or whatever. I think Petty might have been actually that case, if I'm remembering correctly. I could be wrong on that. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate the support. This season's been great. Thank you all for supporting the channel. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I'm getting close to 5,000 subs, so growth has been really cool. But I think, and that's great. Getting in, reaching new people's great. But I think I can see through the numbers, I can see through how the channel's done that just there is a really good base of a lot of you coming back consistently on a regular basis, watching videos, and that's cool. That tells me I'm doing something right. So I really appreciate all that support. Oh, and somebody was thinking just what I was thinking. With Jeffers going down man, this is actually a trade. I was kind of thinking, I was wondering if Contreras was a pending free agent, a guy that they could maybe get in the offseason. Allen's like, hey, what do we do? Jeffers is down. I think, what did they say, 6 to 8 weeks with this thumb injury, which is crazy. He was playing through that, I think, right? So my assumption was like, this wasn't that serious, was how I was thinking about that injury, and that was wrong. And again, Gary Sanchez, is a major league catcher. I think he's just fine. I think a lot of his defensive problems were really overly kind of picked at. I don't think he's great or anything. And he hasn't been a tremendous hitter or anything either. He's come up in the clutch quite a bit, which obviously that's been some, and Ryan Jeffers has as well. I shared a tweet. Well, that'll knock your socks off in regard to that. I'll pull that up. But yeah, I mean, Jeffers is out. So clearly pitching is the Twins' biggest need. And I say that generally. I've been saying that generally since day one. But now that Sonny Gray is really in a rut and, Bailey Ober is down, starting pitching, the bullpen is the biggest thing that's going to keep the Twins from winning the division. But the starting pitching isn't good enough for the Twins to really make a lot of noise in the postseason, especially in combined with the bullpen. So I just think in general, pitching is the number one need. But with Jeffers out, they need catching in some manner. They're going to have to figure that out somehow. I don't think you want Caleb Hamilton being your number 2 catcher from here on out, especially since, again, with Gary Sanchez, you want someone else catching quite a bit. There we go. You can get this looking good. And this is just a stupid thing that I saw. It doesn't have anything to do with them trying to get Contreras or not, but you sparked my memory. So yeah, this is both the catchers, Ryan Jeffers and Gary Sanchez. Their numbers with the bases empty, which of course the Twins have been pretty decent with the bases empty, but when they get runners in scoring position, they've been terrible. And these two guys have been the exact opposite. How weird is that? Jeffers and Sanchez have been bad with the bases empty and have been outstanding with runners in scoring position. In fact, at the time of this tweet was just on the 15th. They were the bottom 2 guys in the team in OPS with the bases empty and first and third on the team with runners in scoring position. And at the end, again, I say the Twins lineup has been weird as hell this year. That's the analysis there. Is not like, wow, these guys are incredible hitters with runners in scoring position. It's just baseball's weird as hell sometimes. And obviously there's a bunch of guys in the Twins on the flip side of that. They've been incredible with the bases empty and complete garbage with runners in scoring position. I think that should normalize, you would think. There's no reason why you should think that it wouldn't over the course of a season. But saying that, it's weird that it hasn't to this point. So who knows, Anyway. Let me make sure we're not losing complete sight of the draft. All right, getting pretty close. Yeah, it looks like they've already kind of started to pick up the pace quite a bit. I don't know that we'll get to their next pick while I'm alive. That's kind of a bummer because they don't have a comp A. They don't have that first sandwich between the first and second round. They don't have one of those picks. They do have one after the second round. Yeah, and David mentions, I should mention that too. Any kind of trade talk. We would love for the Twins to be able to trade for guys. Well, I mean, there's nothing that says you can't, but you can't make teams trade with you. And, I think the best example of you have to consider the logic of the team that you want the guy from, is Daniel Bard for Colorado. There's been some reporting that they're more, and this just tells you what the Rockies are up to. It's just ridiculous. There's some speculation that they might be as likely to extend him than they are to trade him, which, I mean, I'll never fault a team for trying to keep good players and win. I think a lot of teams, and the Twins have done this, and under Falvey, I think, have been kind of too quick to, flip guys or give up on a season, or give up on, a current group of players. But Daniel Bard is 37 years old and a pending free agent. He's exactly the kind of guy that a team like the Rockies should trade. But you can't tell them that if that's not what they want to do, So he might not get traded. So that's the other thing too. You can't there, even if there's a lot of logic on, you think who should get traded or whatever. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. What up, Charlie? All right. And a lot of good chat going on. Thanks for showing up, everybody, and hanging out and, again, chatting with some fellow Twins fans. Oh. I mean, here's another one. Here's another one where it's good kind of to think, okay, well, let's think from the other team's perspective. It's a good question from John. What prospects are more likely to get traded? I mean, if you were a team trading with the Twins, who would you ask about? You're probably going to ask about Spencer Steer. You're probably going to ask about Matt Wallner. You might ask about Christian Encarnacion and Strand. You might ask about Cade Povich, David Festa. All of our pop-up guys that have really had great seasons. Maybe somebody will be interested in kind of buying low on Austin Martin. I mean, I would, even though I'm not a big Austin Martin guy, if his value is that low, to where, he's easier to acquire, he's still a very young guy again. But I would suspect that it's more likely the guys that are having great seasons that no one is going to want to trade. That was the thing. It was so funny. I shared some of the highlights from Matt Wallner's future game where he hit that 116-mile-per-hour home run. My goodness. Whew. So, he's having an incredible year. He hits this home run in the futures game. He's a homegrown guy. He's a Minnesotan. So it's like, I get it. But it was funny. Like, there was a ton of replies that were like, trade this guy, Montas, this guy from Montas. And there was a ton of replies that were like, nobody should ever trade this guy. If he gets traded, I'm going to be pissed. But those are the kind of guys that teams are going to be asking about. Nobody's going to be asking about Keone Cavaco or Aaron Sabato. or guys that stock are super down. That's something I haven't been keeping track of this as closely. I follow the Twins much more closely than other teams in the league. But yeah, that's a funny thing that's happened so far. The Taylor Rogers is obviously off to an incredible start, still having a great season. The Twins would much rather have him than not, of course. But yeah, he's slowed down of late for sure, and that's something throughout his Twins career. It seemed like if they overused him a bit, he'd break down or have a really bad run for a while. You got to kind of be careful with him. I always liked Rogers much more, not in the closer role, in kind of more of a fluid role than not. It's really hard to say. Thanks for the question, Shirley. It's really hard to say like what a trade package is going to take. But I could say whether or not I do it or not. So Luis Castillo of the Reds for Trevor Larnach and Simeon Woods Richardson. I can tell you that I would do that if I was the Twins. I can also tell you that I would probably do that if I was the Reds. But what we can't know is what other teams are offering. Maybe another team has two pitching prospects that are on that same kind of level as a Larnach and a Woods Richardson would be in terms of value. And it just turns out the Reds prefer that, and they go with that. But, the one thing we do know is these teams just made a trade this offseason, and it's not like, I don't think they sat at a table and were like, hey, we want Sonny Gray. And the Reds were like, well, we'd like Chase Petty. Okay, deal. No, they definitely talked about a lot of other stuff. I'm sure the Reds are super familiar with the Twins system, the Twins players. So that's a benefit that I think the Twins have in kind of getting a Luis Castillo deal potentially done. But again, it's another thing where, why didn't the Reds trade Castillo in the preseason? Well, eventually he got hurt. So that wasn't really an option at that point. Now I'm remembering that as we're talking through this here. But I think there was one point early in the offseason he hadn't been hurt, and he was expected to be ready for opening day. And they weren't as hot to trade him. They traded Sonny Gray. You can't make these teams trade these guys. Maybe they want to keep Castillo and trade him in the winter. I don't know. It would seem dumb to me given how terrible the Reds are. But the terrible teams often are terrible for a reason because they're run really weird. I would have tried to trade Luis Castillo over the offseason. Who knows? But again, maybe they're geniuses because, now teams are a little more desperate for him. Yeah, that's kind of the thing that, again, I mentioned it earlier. I never fault a team for trying to keep winning, trying to keep a team together, trying to keep a team chances together. I would be the GM that would get fired for trading away too many prospects and having it go poorly. And that's, you guys know, obviously spend tons of time talking about the minor leagues, talking about prospects, love the prospects. But when you are in a position like the Twins are in this year, and that's not to say there's some, they're going to win the World Series, they're the best team in the American League. No, I think if we look at it with a sober set of eyes, we know that the Twins are in such a good position so far this year because the division's so down. But what are you going to do about that? Are you just going to, just go in to the slaughterhouse of the postseason with the Yankees and the Astros and just get your butts handed to you and go home? I don't think that I wouldn't do that, So maybe it'd be stupid to trade Larnach and Simeon Woods Richardson for Luis Castillo for, I think, what is it, this year and the next year of him. But, you're in this position. The division is down. You're in first place. This might be the only year you have Carlos Correa. Byron Buxton's been healthy. Maybe the next time you're ready to go, that's not the case. There's all these things happening all the time, and some years you think you're going to be in it and you're not, and some years you're not really sure you're going to be in it and you are. So why not kind of go for it? And they can live without Larnach and Simeon Woods Richardson. They have, especially if you get Castillo, well, there you go. You have a legit top of the rotation major league starting pitcher for a year and a half. I mean, Simeon Woods Richardson probably is not going to be that, probably. Who knows? He might be better than Luis Castillo. That's the fun thing about prospects. But yeah, I would push. I would push anytime. And that was such a fun storyline with the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series last year. Was that team had no business winning the World Series. That team had no business adding at the deadline. Ronald Acuna was out for the year. They were I think they were above 500 by the deadline, but they were below 500 pretty close to the deadline. They didn't add as in go for it, but they got some pieces, and those pieces helped them along the line, and they won the freaking World Series. I think if you were to somehow simulate that playoffs, 10 more times, the Braves wouldn't have won the World Series one more time even. If you could somehow do that. Not to take anything away from them. They won the games on the field. But I just think that's such a great lesson to come out of that is that, give your best shot you can. Obviously, you don't want to be stupid and, go completely trade all your top prospects for some middle reliever or something crazy. But there's a line that you have to walk there. But I hope the Twins give this team, the front office gives this team the best chance that it can and is aggressive. And Larnach might be a superstar. But you can live without Larnach. I don't think you can live without upgrade, and an upgrade to the rotation, in addition to clearly being so huge at playoff time, that's going to help the bullpen too. You're going to be able to push someone from the rotation into the bullpen, number one. So like Josh Winder, you could say, oh, okay, now that we've got Luis Castillo here, we can probably move Josh Winder to the bullpen. Josh Winder could be better than Griffin Jax in the bullpen. I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if Josh Winder was a beast out there. But you'd still want to add more to the bullpen. Right now, they're not really pushing him out there, I think, because they're not secure with their starting pitching depth. So they're trying to keep Winder stretched out. It's going to be interesting to see. I think in the second half, and particularly what they do at the deadline, I would probably predict that Winder will end up in the bullpen as a short, like a traditional reliever. But we'll see. And you can always move him back to starting next year. It's not like that has to be a career sentence for the guy. We're seeing that with some teams. With Spencer Strider from Atlanta, I think he started this year out of the bullpen, and now he's been starting, right? I guess that's not he wasn't in the bullpen for a full season or anything, but there's a guy in Philly that did that too. Ranger Suarez, I think. Anyway. Oh, okay, so there was some audio in the last one. Well, I won't screw around with that anymore. Probably should be wrapping up anyway. Looks like they're wrapping up the first round. So yeah, we're not going to get to it's a while. Well, we should, again, they'll probably pick up the pace once we get to the second round. Whatever, we'll see. And again, as with anything, this is just my opinion on all of these topics. My thoughts. I'm wrong all the time. I'm wrong quite often. But, just giving you my feelings on how I'd like things to go. And again, I don't think that the Twins are some kind of super team that they should try to push for a World Series run. I think we'll talk a ton about this. I think probably after the All-Star break, there's a couple days where just nothing is happening. So I think I'm going to talk about kind of the reactions from the first half and kind of how I hope the Twins go forward from here. But God, if you look at the track record of Derek Falvey and Thad Levine, they'll probably have conversations about selling. They're kind of hard to pin down on what you think. And maybe this is just me kind of really harboring and letting their first deadline stick in my head where they bought and sold within a week. They traded for Jaime Garcia and then traded him away a couple days later. He made one start with the Twins. And we saw this winter, how many it was crazy. And I gave him credit for being creative, but it was weird how many different moves they made that were like, is this a sell move? Is this a buy move? Are they going for it? Are they just reloading? And then kind of the Correa move was the cherry on top. But I don't think they ever, it's not like we talked a lot about that in the offseason. It was fascinating. More than anything, that was just fascinating to follow, and especially since so much of it came together in that teeny little time after the lockout ended. God, I'd love to do like some kind of like a documentary style storytelling on that someday. Maybe this upcoming off season, because it was fascinating. I think we're going to be talking about that for a long time. It was just a weird part of baseball too, that we had this lockout going on, and then like. Just think if they got that Byron Buxton extension done right before the lockout. I honestly think if they did not do that, Byron Buxton would have got traded this offseason. And God, who knows what else would have happened this offseason. They could have gone a completely different way. So that was just very interesting. And of course, not all those moves have worked out well or look like they're going to work out well. Not all of them are completely written, but I want to say that all three of the guys that I talked about in the trade targets video I did, which was Frankie Montas, Tyler Mahle, and Luis Castillo, are all under team control for this year and next year. But we got a lot of smart people in the chat. I'm sure somebody's either responded to that already or will correct me if I'm wrong. That's the thing I love about the live chats. I feel like I got backup. Yeah, again, kind of just trying to keep this flowing, keep this interesting, but want to make sure to thank everybody for hanging out. Looks like we got quite a few people in here. We're over an hour now. It's probably longer than I was going to go, but you guys have so much good conversation going on here. And we're gonna be down on baseball. We have the home run derby. All right, that's cool. And the All-Star game. All right, that's cool. But no minor league baseball, even when the All-Star break is going on. So it's going to be a while before I'm doing a system recap. So I've got a lot of things I haven't been able to talk about a lot because those keep me busy. Could Wallner debut this year? I think this is people are probably like tired of me saying this, but it would probably take an injury. Yeah, I mean, he could. All right. Yeah, I think, once you're crushing in AA, not to say that he's ready. His strikeout rate, again, we kind of talked about why I haven't moved Encarnacion and Strand up a lot, but that's the thing with Wallner too, and that's why I had him higher at one point, I think at the end of last year. But I kind of, over the offseason, started to question that, and I shouldn't have. But his strikeout rate is really high. It's not so high to that, if he was striking out this much in the major leagues that it would kill his value. But the concern is if he's striking out this much in the minor leagues, that he's going to strike out a lot more in the majors. Let's see. And this is like a good example of sometimes I like Baseball Reference. Sometimes I like MILB.com. Sometimes I like to pull up Fangraphs. So I've got that with this custom board here that I've set up for everybody. Not that this is the only place you can find this stuff, but yeah, you see Matt Wallner. I mean, if you walk 18.1% of the time, I don't care how much you strike out. So if he can continue that, that's insane. He's one of the minor league leaders in walks this year, which we should probably talk about more often, but his power is so ridiculous that's just the thing that screams out at you. Yeah, 436 on base percent. My goodness. So that, you get a little less concerned about striking out almost a third of the time. But pretty much his entire minor league career has been striking out over 30%. Again, it's not like you can't be a good major leaguer and strike out 30% of the time. You'd rather not be the case, but if you're doing all this other stuff, drawing walks, hitting home runs like crazy, like you take that strikeout rate. Absolutely. If you're going to post at 1,000 OPS, I don't care how much you're striking out. If you're managing to somehow do that at the same time. But my concern is, okay, if he's striking out this much, and this was more so the case, especially last year, which that kind of got in my head about him. If you're striking out a third of the time in the Midwest League, how much are you going to strike out? Well, he's actually cut it slightly, ever so slightly has cut it up to AA and, AAA. Obviously, he's only played one game with the Saints. But the question is like, okay, well, what are we going to look at once it's the major leagues? You certainly wouldn't expect it to go down. Not impossible. Some guys, especially if he has an off season to maybe, address some things that he needs to work on. But you certainly wouldn't expect it to go down. You'd expect it to go up. And then at that point, it's like, all right, what if the power goes down too? So I'm not that, again, that's not to say that, Matt Wallner's not exciting or to throw cold water on it, but that's just sort of a concern I have of him being ready per se. But yeah, I mean, if injuries open up, I think they would turn to him over Jake Cave or something like that. Jacob Cave, favorite of the channel. No offense to Jake Cave, who was, playing pretty well for the Saints and clearly like a good clubhouse dude for that, bringing good energy, which is key. I appreciate that out of Jake Cave. Some guys kind of like are babies about being in the minors or stew about it or whatever. Yeah, Kenta Maeda should be coming back and contributing out of the bullpen at some point as well. Complete, who knows there. Who knows what to expect, but could be a difference maker. I wouldn't count on it. I don't think they should pencil him in as somebody that's really going to be an impact player for them, but he could be. Charlie throws out Misael Urbina as a possible trade chip. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, he's not. He's hitting this year better, much better than he did before. I think teams would like to have seen him perform better to date in the minors, but a hugely touted international signing that the Twins gave a big bonus to, and maybe kind of the same thing I said about Austin Martin applies to Misael Urbina of like, maybe this is the kind of time to buy low. I don't think teams often do that. You don't see that too often with prospects. I feel like, especially at the deadline, but who knows? Yeah, he's been playing well, but it's not a big sample so far this year, but good to see him out there and playing better than he did last year. That's for sure. I love it. There's Jake Cave mention. I don't want to see a top prospect, Jake Cave, on this team. They should hold him back to work on his defense. Yeah, Jacob Cave, you want him to be the super duper star that everybody knows that he can be. We got to let him germinate down on the farm a little bit longer. You're right. It's a good comment, Chip of Yogurt. John is a guy like Balazovic, basically untradeable. I mean, you're not going to get anything. It makes more sense to keep him and hope that you can get him pointed in the right direction. You would just be selling so low. And maybe even teams would be like, I don't know, taking a look at him. Some teams might take a look at him and be like, we'd actually know how to fix him. We're not going to give you much because he's so bad right now. I wouldn't expect teams to be asking about him. Very frustrating year he's had. All right, we got to be getting close here, right? Getting carried away. All right, so we got through the first round and the compensation. So, yeah, we've got quite a few more picks. I don't know if we're going to make it. Suppose I could take a little break. I've never done that on a stream. Could throw another video on. Hey, Steve, thanks so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. I haven't been bringing up the super thanks as much because actually I feel bad about not shouting people out for doing those. I really appreciate that. But that was like a hiccup. It was slowing me down. This is a bad excuse. It was just slowing me down on the system recaps, trying to get those in every night at the end of the videos. But I really appreciate that, Steve. I should bring those up more often. And Steven brings up Bednar. Yeah, David Bednar is like the, crown jewel of the potential relief market, but he has like 4 years of team control. I think the current rumor right now is that the Pirates aren't really interested in trading him at all. I think they can be competitive in the window that they have Bednar. Now, everybody has a price, but how much are you willing to overpay in a trade for a relief pitcher? Relievers are really kind of up and down. Now, this is a guy who's in his second really good season in a row now. So I think Bednar, it's not like he's some guy who's never had really an elite year. Kind of when I look at Jorge Lopez of Baltimore, obviously the Twins took care of him pretty well. But he's having an incredible year. But I don't think, I'm pretty sure he hasn't had a year anywhere near this up to this point. So it's easy to raise an eyebrow to those guys because there can be guys that come and go like that in the reliever scene, have an incredible half season or something, and then they just never do it again. So Bednar checks that box. He checks that multi-year box. I'm with you. But I don't think the Pirates are going to be super motivated to trade him. It sucks. And I think the extra wild card is kind of making things tricky because there's more buyers. I think that's also making some teams think like, hey, it gives a team like the Pirates maybe some more hope that like they could get into the playoff picture next year with a few things break right, because so many teams make it in. Yeah, I think it's a little easier to believe in Cavaco than it is Sabato, but they're both looking like they're not going to live up to their draft stock for sure. Aaron Sabato should be destroying the Midwest, and he did last year when he got promoted to Cedar Rapids. He crushed the Midwest League, and just could not replicate that so far this year at all. Not confident in him. Cavaco's still young, and he's hitting for power at least. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily confident, but he was always kind of expected to be this kind of long-term project that was going to take a while. So I think there's still some hope that he clicks. Not that I would bet on it. And not that, that's looking like it's going to be a good pick necessarily, but what do you do? Alan says, Bednar is my dream. Yeah, definitely. Definitely good call-outs. That would be, like you said, the dream scenario. A guy who has a multi-year track record, multi-year team control. He's like the dream, David Bednar, basically situation. So I think they'll have conversations, but I don't. They're making it sound like they're not going to move him, and maybe that's just them trying to position themselves better and get teams to up their offers to be smart. Yeah, that's a good point too. I already mentioned Archer may look good in the pen. And he's not like he's given them a lot of length anyway. And like today, he was great through 4 2/3 innings. Just imagine if you only asked him to go 2. You might get a velo jump. You might get him, a little bit nastier, for sure. So yeah, that was a conversation we were having about a potential rotation upgrade. Could also have a big impact on the bullpen because it might allow you to move some of the guys in the rotation into the bullpen, and boost it that way. All right, again, some good informed talk going on here. Questions already being answered very well by the chat. Thanks again so much, everybody, for hanging out. Yeah, I just have the draft tracker up. I don't have the actual draft live stream. Charlie throws out Joey Gallo as a Wallner comp. I mean, I want to say no, but Joey Gallo was really good for what he's been terrible of late. But he was pretty damn good for a while. Struck out like crazy. I'm kind of that's right. He got to the major leagues so fast. He debuted at 21, so there's not even really a huge minor league track record. Well, yeah, he struck out like crazy in the minor leagues. What was his? Again, riveting stuff as I talk through. Skull rolling around here. He struck out in 2014. Joey Gallo had 291 plate appearances in Double A and struck out 39.5% of the time. The next year, he repeated Double A and struck out 33.6% of the time. And then in Triple A, he struck out 39.5% of the time. But he always walked a ton, and he always hit a ton. So, he had like 1,000 OPS over that time. I mean, it's not... We'll take it. We'll take the lazy comp. Yeah, it's not a perfect comp. And, Joey Gallo was a bit higher profile. But, he's a third. Gosh, Gallo went 39th overall. Wasn't Matt Wallner 38th, 36th? And I know a lot of people who hate the style of Joey Gallo are like barfing in their mouths right now. But I've seen a lot of people call for Matt Wallner to get called up and take Max Kepler's job. Yeah, Wallner was the 39th overall pick too. And it's like, do you realize this guy's going to strike out like 40% of the time? As long as you're fine with that. But a lot of people I see kind of call for that. I think people I've seen really don't like guys who strike out a lot. And Wallner strikes out quite a bit. Again, if you're hitting for power and you're drawing tons of walks, there's not really a huge problem with that, but it seems to eventually catch up with guys. Steven. Yeah, sure. Something to keep in mind. Rosters do not expand to 40 anymore. Rosters expand to 28. So there's only 2 more spots added in September. I don't imagine Jake Cave will be one of those guys. But I don't disagree with what you have here. I kind of wouldn't. It would be a nice story to see Jake Cave go somewhere else and be able to play. I don't think the Twins will probably do that because he's a handy guy to have as a break glass in case of emergency type of player. Yeah, he is hitting. He's got an 853 OPS for St. Paul, which isn't shocking. He obviously tailed off in his Twins career. I don't expect him to be a good hitter in the major leagues if he were to ever come back again. He's kind of a quad A player. Speaking of which, there's a trade and a ghost of fall he passed. Is Luis Hill, is he still hurt? The guy they traded to the Yankees for Jake Cave, who throws like 100. He's in AAA. Oh, yeah, he had Tommy John. There you go. Yep. 60-day IL. He's still he's 24 now. He's getting a little up there for a prospect to have not stuck yet. I mean, the funny thing is, to this point, if we don't trade for some pitchers, the season is over. I still think they could probably win the AL Central with this pitching staff. They definitely. I mean, if they don't add pitching, Derek Falvey and Thad Levine should both be fired on the spot, basically, unless they sell, which I don't. That would be so stupid to do. I feel like this year. But I don't think that. I think they could win the AL Central with this pitching staff. That's how crappy the AL Central is. It's so bad. I've been calling it the Turd Derby on Twitter. And we should probably pull that up. That'd be a good thing to pull up the standings. All right. Here are current standings. And the Twins are 2.5 games up on Cleveland and 3.5 games up on the White Sox. So, that's with, it's so the baseball season's amazing. Feels like there have been a billion games played. I mean, there have been 94 games played or whatever. But there's still so much season left that a 3.5 game lead, a 2.5 game lead, I mean, that can get wiped away in a week or two, but still, I think Cleveland and Chicago are so bad. Maybe they fix some of their problems. I don't know. Maybe they take that Atlanta route of like, hey, let's give our team a shot. Let's add more than people think we're going to add. Be a little bit more aggressive than people think. But, yeah. But the Twins need to add a lot to get into that Yankees Astros. I think that might be a question I address over this downtime. Somebody asked me what would it take for the Twins to build a championship roster. And I kind of took that to mean what would it take for the Twins to build the favorite? And it's like, whew. I mean, it's going to be a long list. Again, that doesn't mean it's not, it doesn't make sense because, again, you look at the National League last year, the Dodgers and the Giants both won over 100 games in the NL West. And let's see. The Braves won the World Series. What, on July 17th? Let's do that. Last season. So actually, these are the final standings. I'm sorry. I'm talking a lot about the Braves. I just thoroughly enjoyed watching them go through the playoffs, their whole situation last year. I just loved it. Again, Giants 107, Dodgers 106, Atlanta won 88 games. Their best player got hurt for the year. They figured it out. They put it together. And what are we? It's July 17th today. So a year ago today, the eventual World Series champion Atlanta Braves were a game under 500. They were 45-46. They did have a nice positive run differential if you're into that. But yeah, so, just because the Twins don't look like they could ever stack up against the Yankees and the Astros, and I know it's ridiculous. I know, okay? I know. I'm surprised no one in the chat's gone here yet. 0-18 is a thing, okay? So let's just get that out of the way first. I realize that. But I'm just saying, if I'm in the Twins front office, I'm still trying to figure out, like, what could we do to improve the team? You just don't just throw in the towel on World Series aspirations because it seems incredibly highly unlikely, to be honest, when looking at the Twins versus some of these other teams. Because, yeah, you never know. Yeah, I think someone in the chat said, like, it comes down to who gets hot. And you got to play well. You got to beat the teams on the field, It comes down to competing. Oh, shit. Cat fight. Hopefully my mic's not picking that up. I got to break up a cat fight real quick. Legit. Like actual cats. Live. Just in case you were wondering, we are live. I have cats. I have a newer cat who's young, and I have a couple older cats, and they don't always get along real well. That's that situation. But anyway, again, I've got to interrupt the stream to talk about our sponsors. TF Twins custom jerseys. If you want your Brooks Lee custom jersey, DM me. These babies are $1,000 a piece. Authentic. Okay. Again, Brooks Lee's mom doesn't even have a Brooks Lee Twins jersey yet. You can copy yours today. Hit me up. All right. What did we transition to while I got that going on? Gosh, I want to keep going to this next pick comes up. It's taking forever. We're getting closer. Because I feel like this is going to be fun. We can complain about it. Complain about it live. But in case you missed it, the Twins took Brooks Lee. Talked about it a lot earlier. What's the impression on him? Again, I want to stress, I'd never try to present myself as somebody who knows more than I do. There are some topics I feel very comfortable discussing and feel knowledgeable about, having followed this team so closely. But following the team on an everyday basis, on a granular basis through the whole system, the top 4 levels in particular, doesn't leave me a whole lot of time to stay abreast to the amateur baseball situation. So personally, I am not your best person to go to on that, but places like Baseball America, The Athletic, MLB.com, ESPN, these are Carlos Collazo, Keith Law, Jonathan Mayo, Jim Callis, Kylie McDaniel. These are the primo. It's their job, their full-time job, their expertise. And those are Aaron's sharing the rankings where all those places had Brooks Lee, the guy the Twins picked in the first round, 8th overall. So as you see, that makes it look like a steal of the draft, Brooks Lee. That's what we should start calling him. Maybe I'll refer to that to him anytime we talk about him from now on. Brooks Lee, steal of the draft. 2nd ranked by Baseball America, 5th ranked by The Athletic, 5th ranked by MLB.com, 6th ranked by ESPN. As we showed you on Twins Daily, that boiled down to number 4 consensus, number 4 overall prospect. If you combined all those lists together, that's the average of where he landed on those. So a really good looking pick. Still, if you don't like the profile, I get it. I get a picture. I get it. But kind of, again, if you're coming in late to the stream, one of the conversations I was having was, one of the reasons why you you might focus on value above all else and not think about, what your system needs, what your team needs, whatever, is that value never goes out of style, basically. Value, you can flip that. You can take, if it turns out Brooks Lee, once he's, in the minor leagues looking good, getting going, looking hot, and it turns out he is maybe a second base, or he's a shortstop. Let's say he sticks at shortstop even. You've got Royce Lewis, let's say a couple of years down the road here, and he's looking like a Hall of Famer. Royce Lewis is going to be a Hall of Famer, and you've got Brooks Lee over here who's looking like a legit guy. Oh, what a problem. What a terrible problem to have. What are you going to do? You got too many good players. Well, you can just take Brooks Lee and trade him for a pitcher then. And you'll have more information on that pitcher than somebody you would have stretched out to get in this draft, reached to get him, maybe riskier guy, and you didn't go best value, you went best pitcher, and it turned out that guy didn't end up as good as Brooks Lee, steal of the 2022 draft. What do you do then? Well, you're screwed. You can't do anything with that guy that you picked. So that's kind of there's a lot of reason to focus on best value, but if you're kind of only going to think of it from a major league's perspective, that's kind of my argument to you. Let them fight. I should have brought my camera with. No, it wasn't a fight. It was just a hissing match. So I think everybody's okay. Charlie, yeah, if Correa was a guy the Twins would have traded had they sucked, yeah. I mean, I could definitely have seen that. I don't think he would have wanted to stick around. Either he hasn't been on a losing team or it's been since like his rookie year. I think it'd be dumb to trade him. Even if you think there's a 0% chance he's back next year, which I don't really think that's the case. I wouldn't bet on it. I think there's some chance that Carlos Correa will be back next year. I'll say this though, the Twins are answering the phone. I can promise you. If the Yankees call the Twins about Carlos Correa, the Twins aren't hanging up. Even the first place team, I don't think they are. I don't think that's the way this front office operates. But and if they would have been bad, they would have traded Correa for sure. I think that was actually part of my preseason. I'm gonna have to look back on that. That's another good thing the All-Star game or All-Star week will be good for. I can look back on some stuff. Because I know my prediction for the Twins was like 78 wins, which I kind of saw this. I saw them kind of getting to the All-Star break or to the trade deadline a little bit over 500. But I thought the White Sox were going to be like the Yankees and Astros. I thought they were going to be that third like dominant force in the American League, which kind of left the Twins certainly in the thick of the wild card hunt. But I thought if that was the case and maybe Chicago had a nice lead built up, that would have potentially happened, that the front office, even in a playoff spot, might have traded some guys and then fallen back down to below 500 with a poor second half. A very convoluted theory that I had on how this season was going to go, by the way. I was getting very creative. I had some creative juices in me over the offseason that just weren't coming out. I didn't have these system recaps to make every day. So I had to come up with this convoluted scenario on how I thought that the season was going to go. We'll see. My cat's names. I have a 16-year-old cat named Gus. I have a 14-year-old cat named Simon. And I have a 1-year-old cat named Sunny. I didn't name any of them. You know, my daughter, my 5-year-old daughter at the time named Sunny. And then my wife named the other two. But those are their names. And everybody's fine. Oh, Andrew, you guys could hear that? That's awesome. I never know how sensitive my mic is. You guys could definitely pick that up, I bet. Oh. You have a Denny Hawkins jersey? That's amazing. They retired his number, the Twins. They retired Denny Hawkins' number. What a show of commitment to Denny Hawkins, who had 299 in, 1999? People forget that. At one point, there was like a line of Twins fandom where you could tell 298. Denny Hawkins hit 298 in the year 2000. And you could tell the fans that watched the Twins in the year 2000 and the ones that didn't after that. And it was a similar line with Eddie Guardado, but for the opposite reason. Because Eddie Guardado in... it was actually back-to-back years. It's 96, 97. But he was just not good for a long time. Just flat out. I mean, 95, 96, 98, 99. Although, obviously, it's back at stats because the run-scoring environment in the late 90s was so crazy that the ERAs back then looked just god-awful now, but they were actually pretty good. Anyway, my point is, if you watched early career Eddie Guardado, it took a much longer time for you to get your head wrapped around him as like an all-star closer. And you were always much more panicked than like somebody who'd shown up a little bit later on once the Twins were, in their kind of glory run of the early 2000s. Denny Hawkins was the opposite there. If you had appreciated his year 2000 in which he played all over the place, we're really going off topic now. I love it. What did he play? Yeah, he played every damn position except for pitcher and catcher. Denny Hawking did that year. Amazing. Hit 298. It was kind of an empty 298. Well, he had a 373 OBP. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Charlie, why you got to do this? Why you got to do this, man? Now I feel like I can't call Brooks Lee the steal of the draft because you're making a really excellent point here. All right, we already got to come up with a new nickname for this guy. Oh, yeah, and see, I haven't been following up on names much. Let's get back into that. There's what is that kid's name? I know Jeremy Nygaard from Twins Daily really was intrigued with him potentially at the 8th overall pick. God, I want to say a name, but I know that's not. I know exactly who you're talking about. I'm sure people in the chat are throwing it in like crazy. Tom, you idiot! It's this guy. But yeah, there was an injured Alabama pitcher who was sort of a guy, Connor Prelip, a left-hander from Alabama who's hurt. He had Tommy John surgery. He was considered a potential top 10 overall pick before needing Tommy John. And so there was some speculation that a team might take him and try to sign him for under slot early. And so he was sort of like, well, the Twins will probably do this, or this, but don't rule out this guy as a potential kind of swerve. And he is still on the board. Ooh, so that's kind of a fun thing to follow. And yeah, if you guys, again, I'm not like a huge draft guru. I really enjoyed, watching a lot of college stuff before the season started. But then once the MLB season started, I just ran out of time. So I'm familiar with some of these guys. I've seen quite a few of these guys play, but not a draft guru. And again, sometimes you guys will bring up a comment like this that'll jog a memory of something I've read somewhere or whatever. But if you have guys that are coming up, because we are getting closer, and we are at the 39th overall pick, and the Twins pick in the second round is the 48th. So yeah, we're getting close enough to that point where we can kind of start bouncing some names around, and there's, not 20 picks in between then and now. But it looks like on that consensus big board that I was telling you about, we'll pull that up. That is on Twins Daily. Jamie Cameron, I believe, was the one who put this one together. And basically it's just they've just combined all of the rankings from all the big major publications, and Connor Prelip was 23rd on that. So it tells you kind of, how, even though he fell, and this may be kind of a good opportunity to talk about my thoughts on injured guys. Like, I don't know that I would dock a guy that much just because he was injured and recovering. Like, what are the chances okay, let's say you draft a guy who's healthy, right? What are the chances that guy's going to stay healthy for his entire, career, for his entire run up your system? Not good. So, like, are you really going to be overly concerned about a guy who's coming off Tommy? Obviously, he missed last year. You could have seen him play a lot more. That's unfortunate. You want to see how a guy competes in addition to just like how he throws a bullpen. So it certainly creates some questions, but I don't think I would dock a guy that much who is injured or coming off an injury or whatever, because what are the chances that the guy that you want to take him over is going to get hurt right away anyway? I don't know. There is some interesting, I think that's sort of the next frontier of baseball analysis, and like, the spreadsheets and the gurus and the all the things that baseball fans seem to complain about a lot, is the analytics. The analytics, I think that's the next thing, is the analytics of injuries is kind of developing. And that is starting to happen, and you're seeing and hearing some things, especially in the fantasy baseball world, about I heard some things kind of for the first time this offseason about people projecting injured list days. I don't know if that'd been maybe that'd probably been a thing for a while. if I'm just hearing about it now, it's certainly probably what isn't new. But I'm sure there's some kind of stuff that teams do with injured guys where they're projecting out their careers. But just from my unscientific approach, I just think like, okay, a guy's hurt now. Well, that's just because that guy's healthy. Like these guys aren't going to contribute to your major league team for years anyway. So what are the odds that that guy stays healthy and this hurt guy stays hurt all the time? Maybe it's more likely, if you're injured once, maybe you're more likely to get injured again, but I don't know. Yeah, and some people mention Ben Joyce, who's also available. He's the guy that turned a lot of heads and was all over pitching ninja and stuff for throwing 105 out of Tennessee's bullpen. Another guy his injury history is ridiculous. Ben Joyce, insane. It's barely pitched, and that goes back to his high school days. But again, I don't know. Again, guy throws 105. Guy throws 105. If the Twins get either one of those guys at 48, that would be very exciting. And that's coming from I don't know all of what else is out there. There's a lot of great players, and even though we showed how few, how the value is kind of limited in the 8th overall pick, obviously that even becomes more so at a 48th overall pick. Pull that up. But that doesn't mean like there's not guys that are incredible that have been picked there. I don't know what my best shot at getting to that is. Let me pull that up on here. Just get a draft. Bear with me just a moment here. 48 is where the Twins are picking. Yeah. All right, we're chugging along here. Nice. All right. All right, so here is the list of the number 48 overall picks in draft history, and we already see a familiar name here. Simeon Woods Richardson was the Mets' number 48 overall pick in 2018. He went to Toronto, I think, in the Marcus Stroman trade, and then came over to the Twins in the Jose Barrios trade. But, kind of going through here, again, it's not like there's not Josh Donaldson. There we go, the Cubs. Another guy who'd been traded a few times on his journey. Is he the best? Nope. Cal Ripken Jr. Oh, we're going to get the next Cal Ripken Jr.? What? Wow. Sid Bream. Great mustache. I mean, I'll take the next Sid Bream mustache guy. There's lots of college. I watched college baseball again. Like I said early before the major league season, it's like every guy had a mustache. So yeah, obviously the further you go back in the draft, the less likely it becomes, the less, impressive these are. Bob Hammond, didn't he win Rookie of the Year? He did. I remember that because then he was just god awful from then on. Oh, he was actually really good his rookie year. Funny. I think this winter when we do live, when there's a regular live show again, we're just going to have a Let's Remember Some Guys episode. That's just going to be it. Talk about London and whoever else. Oh, please give a shout out to Buxton being healthy. Yeah, absolutely. That's where I was kind of going. We were seeing this with the Twins. I was talking about injuries and forecasting injuries and analyzing things. That load management, which I'm not an NBA fan. I don't watch basketball. So I haven't been exposed to that as much there, but I know that's kind of a lingo that comes from the NBA is load management, and they try to, keep guys fresh and There's some analytics behind that, and that's certainly coming in. We're seeing with Buxton and what the Twins have been doing, with getting him off days, even if he's healthy and trying. And there's some kind of analysis or analytics behind that. I don't know what, again, I don't have firsthand knowledge of how they come up with that stuff, but that's certainly in the game these days. And I think it's definitely factored into some of these draft guys. So it's easy for me to say, like, well, just take the injured guy because every pitcher gets injured anyway, so who cares? But I think teams might have data on, like, no, we have, it's pretty common that if a guy has a Tommy John before time or whatever else, a lot of these guys have a lot, like I said about Ben Joyce, he has a lot of injury history, not just in college, in his high school days. But it's like, what if you get that guy and he stays healthy? I would be the worst person to have in a draft room because I'll just fall in love with everybody. That's how I was finding myself reading up on coming into the draft today and reading up on something. It's like every guy. I was like, I want him to get that guy. How come we can't get this guy, and that guy? So yeah. But Brooks Lee is clearly a future Hall of Famer. I did not just come up with that since he was drafted number. I've thought of this for years that, Brooks, that's why I've had that jersey, actually, that Brooks Lee jersey I showed you. I've actually had that for 3 months. So, you can jump on the band. I'll let you on the bandwagon. I'll let you on Team Brooks Lee. Because I've already been there, okay? All right. Oh, lots of good. There's been some catcher talk for trades. Yeah, that's an interesting wrinkle that's been added to the Twins shopping list for sure. Still definitely need pitching, but catching, I think they have to get something. And gosh, the 1-2 punch of losing Wes Johnson and then also now losing Ryan Jeffers. I mean, that's a lot of management of the pitching staff, a lot of leadership of the pitching staff down. And, obviously Jeffers is a younger player, but, your catcher is a pretty important guy in that picture. And if anybody you bring in from the outside is not going to be as familiar with this pitching staff, might be kind of a bit of an adjustment. Oh, there went Ivan Melendez, the Hispanic Titanic. That is one guy I know by name coming off the board there from Texas. I think he was the player of the year, just a ridiculous year. Not the kind of guy that I would want to see the Twins pick, really, because he's a complete bat only, basically first baseman DH, but the Arizona Diamondbacks got him. That's fun for them. That's a team that, oh boy, they need bats. Oh my God. That's a nice pick. And Brian, again, no problem with these takes, obviously. I mean, anybody familiar or barely familiar with the Twins knows they need some pitching. But maybe kind of another way to put this is bringing in a Brooks Lee into your organization makes you feel like you can trade a Spencer Steer and have it not impact your overall infield depth or whatever, or whoever, whatever other infielder you might have in mind, and get pitching for that instead. So that's why, go for the value, and then you can kind of, in a way, transition that into pitching one way or another is kind of the way I would look at it. But with one of these next 2 picks, I think they have to take a pitcher. Because again, like I was saying earlier, I don't think you want to draft based on your need of your MLB team. I don't think you want to draft based on your need for your system right now. But I do think you want to build a draft class that kind of complements itself. I don't think the Twins would want to go with a guy similar to Lee, like another kind of bat first college guy, even if that guy is their top value now. I don't think you're just going to want to value the whole draft. But again, I'm not a draft guru. I'm not an amateur baseball expert. Maybe there's some things they can do later. Like, if we think about it from last year's draft, that's another conversation I was going to have. We should do that. But we got time. Let's pull up last year's draft class, because David Festa, if you watch the channel, you know that name. David Festa is destroying the minor leagues right now. He was their 13th round pick last year. My God. Ridiculous. So, it's not as if they can't find some guys later on. And again, we've been talking about these ridiculous college performers and guys who are highly touted. They're still out there at this point, pitchers. But this was their class last year. I'm sure I don't miss this, but there we go. So Chase Petty traded for Sonny Gray. You don't want to do that a lot. You don't want to keep doing that over and over again. But I mean, gosh, you trade a 18, 19-year-old kid for somebody like Sonny Gray. He's not been pitching well of late, but a legit like number 2 type starter. I think you do that every day. Because what are the odds? That Chase Petty might be even better than Sonny Gray, maybe. But I think the odds are much more that he'll. Nothing against Chase Petty. This is about just anybody who's at this stage in his career. Chances are he's not going to provide as much major league value in return. So I think they did good of getting value with the 26th pick. Again, they got value from that pick. It's not going to be Chase Petty, but it's going to be 2 years of Sonny Gray. Noah Miller was their second pick, who I didn't like that much at the time, and now I'm just in love with. So then they went Steve Hadger and Cade Povich. Cade Povich was their 3rd round pick and is looking awesome in Cedar Rapids already. Strain in the 4th round. Christian McLeod's hurt, but I also liked him at the time of the draft. Travis Adams has pitched well in Fort Myers in the 6th round. And then again, Festa in the 13th round. Again, I get it. Anybody who was really itching for pitching. If you're itching for pitching, put that on a T-shirt. Put that on a T-shirt. Where's soda stick or what? Pick and shovel. Put that on it. The Twins are itching for pitching. I get it. I totally get it. Hey, I'm having a good time. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, this has been we're pushing 2 hours. I'm going to have to get off of here pretty closely after the next pick comes. But again, I think I know there's some of the folks here watching are probably just as up on. But there's people in the chat here that are more knowledgeable on this draft pool than I am. So certainly, if you've got any takes or any people that you're hoping that the Twins go with here, let me see. Let me jump over here and see if we have any speculation or takes from anybody. Yeah, Brock Porter is a guy who is super high on a lot of rankings. That's apparently still out there. Again, I haven't been able to keep up with the names. Sorry again for the silence, but I'm just kind of scrolling through Twitter. I should be at Twins Daily. Lesson learned there. Waste of time. They have a live. Oh. There we go. All right, we are at the 46th pick. Huh. Hit up Baseball America. About to learn who the steal of the second draft is. That's the second round. So we decided maybe we can't really call Brooksley the steal of the first round. We're going to call who. I don't care what happens, okay? Charlie, don't correct me this time. I don't want any good comments that make sense. Just let me have this one. Whoever the Twins take in the second round, we're going to call the steal of the second round. All right. I probably shouldn't do this. I'm bringing up things I probably shouldn't do. As a member of the content creator community, I don't always like to share things that might maybe behind a paywall. I'll just say you should be supporting Baseball America. I recommend a subscription. These are who they have as the top best available players. I think there's been some speculation in the chat that Brock Porter's probably has a signability issue, and that's why he's not been drafted yet. That he's likely going to follow up on his college commitment instead of being, interested in signing and going pro. Makes sense. Usually when somebody falls like this, that's the case. But we have the number 19 overall guy, a college hitter, Jacob Melton. I think I've seen him play once or twice with Oregon State. Carson Wisenhunt, a pitcher from East Carolina. Blade Tidwell from Tennessee, and Brock Jones, an outfielder from Stanford. So certainly getting some more pitching. Again, the earlier rounds of the draft was very bat heavy, where the Twins were drafting early in the first round, very bat heavy. Prelip is still out there. So definitely some interesting names. All right, and the Marlins pick is in. Jacob Miller are getting down to it. So what are we thinking, people? Oh, Adam Mazer is another one. I've seen him pitch a ton because I was watching Iowa in particular. I think he's from Minnesota too. So he's, not one of the top available guys, but that's so. This again, it's not like the teams go off these rankings. It's very hard to project how teams might have these guys ranked. So he's in sort of the conversation. Yeah, he was Iowa's ace. Kind of was up and down, a little bit inconsistent, but he had some really great outings and was a really big fast riser on kind of these draft rankings. A guy who really improved his draft stock as the year went on. So he's kind of a pop-up guy. I liked him quite a bit. I'm not sure if it makes sense for the Twins to go with him here. Again, I'm not super familiar with the rest of the pool. So, me being like, hey, I know this one guy. They should take him then. So we'll see. Somebody's bummed they didn't get Jacob Miller, a high school senior right-hander out of high school that the Marlins just got. John, I'll be happy. Pitcher. Yeah, and there's some good. We didn't talk about the whole slot thing, but there's some good conversation going on about, if the Twins can figure out a way to get lead assigned for under slot, that's a really huge part of draft strategy. I haven't talked about a lot because I haven't, I don't know that I'm really the great person to try to talk through that, but sometimes teams will, and it's hard to line up. I imagine it's what if you draft a guy in the first round that you think you can get for under slot, but then you can't, or if you get him under slot, but then you can't get the guy later on to sign. Like, for example, the Twins took Brandon. Well, this was out of the slot area. But there's always guys they don't sign. I was about to mention how they drafted Brandon Birdsell in the 11th round last year and couldn't sign him. But that's not really a situation that applies to this. But I think probably the most famous example is that they drafted Royce Lewis 1 overall so they could sign him under slot, and most of that money went to Blaine Enlow, who I think Blaine Enlow ended up getting the second most money in that draft class for the Twins, even though he was the fourth guy they picked, I think. So yeah, that's kind of it'll be interesting. That all kind of comes out later. Guys get drafted and then they have to negotiate a bonus. That's why Kumar Rocker was available again, despite being drafted by the Mets last year. They couldn't agree on a bonus. And I don't know if the Mets ever even made him an offer, right? Because they were so freaked out by the physical that he had. And then shortly after the pick, I'll see what we can do in scrounging up some info or video or whatever. I think the cat fight is over. I think I resolved the conflict. Stephen clarifies that the Mets are $0 based on the medical red flags. What an unfortunate situation, you know. It's too bad they couldn't have resolved that before the draft somehow. Because once you're drafted, and that happens, there's nothing that Kumar Rocker could have done. It sucks. Basically his options were go back to college, I think, or go play indie ball, which he picked indie ball. It's kind of sad. His Twins are on the clock. It's kind of sad his professional career, his major league professional career, I guess. I mean, because independent ball is technically pro, but his major league professional career got delayed by a whole year. You know, it's too bad, but that all resolved itself. Very nice to see he went third overall. And Steven mentions that Boris wouldn't give up medical records. That all sucks. You know, it's an agent and a team, you know, kind of muddying up a young man's future. Very unfortunate. Sucks for him. I'm sure Boris was trying to do the best he could to get him the most money or whatever, but you can't get that time back. But, you know, I think Rocker found a way to kind of keep developing and getting better and is healthy now. you would have to imagine, oh, God. Just think of like a week we hear about Texas, like, oh, Jesus, his shoulder's shredded. Oh, that would be crazy. Yeah, Twins are on the clock. Again, this is what Baseball America has as the top guys on the board. Again, support Baseball America. Great publication. We were, you know, and I haven't been able to in on any of the analysis. So again, if you guys have coverage takes that is even coming for the broadcast, feel free to put it out there. But it sounds like Brock Porter is more than likely going back to school, or possibly has kind of an agreement maybe with a team that's saving money that they think they can get him. Who knows? Not an agreement, but there's been some conversation going on. And then the rest of the dudes up there, I hope Rob Manfred's not still reading the names. I hope they only did that for the first round. I wish he didn't do it at all. I just don't want to see his face. I was happy to hear there was some boos the first time he came out. They kind of you could tell they kind of cut the mic, the background mic a little bit. They turned that down right as that was happening, but yuck. All right. Just waiting on the pick. It's riveting. I hope the broadcast, if you guys have that on too, I hope that's more entertaining than just sitting, watching me twiddle my thumbs. But I figure we made it this far. We made it this far. I'm not going to make it to 68. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's going to move real quick through the rest of this, but I'm not going to make it to 68. I'm just not. It's not going to happen. It'll be like another 40 minutes. Oh, no, we got a commercial break on the broadcast. So it'll probably come up on Twitter first then. That's what happened actually around pick what I saw on Twitter before I saw it on the broadcast. What? The Twins are drafted. They got him. What? I gotta see it. A fish. Oh, snap. We were talking about this guy. Again, this is a guy I'll admit I haven't seen. I've seen some highlights of him. I've not seen him pitch. I don't know a ton about him, but again, kind of lean on the people who know things, leaning on the sources, talking about. Let's pull that back up. The consensus here. Don't want to fumble around here. If you were someone who wanted the Twins to get a very high upside pitcher, this is what you wanted. And I'm glad we got to discuss this guy a little bit beforehand. So you could tell that my opinion wasn't tainted by him going to the Twins. By the way, steal of the second round. You heard it here first, folks. Steal of the second round. And we talked about him before he got drafted. So that's nice. I'm not just BSing because I'll do that a lot. That this dude, I'm not scared off by the injury. He had Tommy John, so he did not pitch, or he pitched very little. One of the other in college, and was the 24th, right? So again, we're going back to Twins Daily, and this was a consensus ranking combining The Athletic, ESPN, MLB Pipeline, Baseball America, and Prospect Live. So all of those lists. So those are the experts. Those are the guys that know the stuff. And when you combined all their rankings together, Connor Prelip was the 23rd guy on those rankings. 23rd. And as you see, the blurb there says he appeared to be destined to be a top 10 overall pick before needing Tommy John. And like we were talking about, I don't think, to me, that doesn't seem like because you're drafting a guy. He's not coming in and playing tomorrow. You're not expecting him to be on the Twins for years anyway. So what does it matter that he's injured right now? You could have drafted somebody else who's been healthy his whole life, and he could shred his elbow tomorrow. Guys are getting hurt so much that I just assume every pitcher is going to be injured half the time anyway. So just that it happened, the guy needed Tommy John now, like that doesn't bother me that much. And that the fact that he has this much upside, and there was some speculation that the Twins might have drafted him at 8, had things been, they maybe wanted to try to get him under slot, whatever. So now, again, this is the consensus rankings of all of those, big national publications that are incredibly, keyed in. The people that know what they're talking about. The Twins now have the number 4 and number 24. So that's 2 of the top 25 guys in this draft class based off of that consensus ranking that the Twins have landed. Wow. Woo! Hooey. Oh, and okay. I'm glad Charlie, who kind of poo-pooed correctly the Lee statement. It was an overstatement, but he agrees. This is total steal of the second round. Steal of the second round. All right. Well, now I'm glad we hung out for a while longer. That's awesome. So yeah, and again, this this has worked out really good. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen though? I'd imagine, if this guy is this big of a profile, and he's got the option of just going back to Alabama. I don't think signing him probably is a slam dunk, but I don't think the Twins would use their number 48 pick. And this is why he's been going back, I'm sure. This is why he hasn't been drafted earlier, is there's maybe some signability concerns. But I don't think the Twins would draft him here if they weren't pretty confident what they could do. Now, I will say, maybe there's not money that they can bring from Lee that's going to make this signing happen, but maybe the rest of their draft is going to be maybe kind of like underwhelming in that, because the bonus pool, I think, is from the first 10 rounds, I'm pretty sure, unless things have changed. So like you see here, their number 68 pick has a bonus pool of $1 million. So maybe like the rest of their top 10, they're going to kind of go with guys that kind of are, guys they think they can get for underslot because they need to devote a lot of money to these first two guys. Again, this is all speculation. The next Cal Ripken in pitcher form. That's right. I don't know that he's going to be the Iron Horse, but whatever. We don't need him. We don't need him to be. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for me, though. But I'm going to have some more stuff on the draft. I'm going to have some more stuff on these guys. Figure out something to do on the pick 68. Probably have that for you tomorrow. Without there being a system recap, should have some extra time. And this is also just like really exciting, the first two rounds. And if the Twins wouldn't have drafted guys that were up on, the fact that they drafted a guy who was in the top 5 in the rankings, and then a guy in the top 25 in the rankings, is clearly exciting. Some of these other teams didn't even get one of the top 25 guys, and who knows, maybe that they're going to turn out better. But you certainly are more excited than not that the Twins appear to have done an extremely good job at getting value early on. I'm very curious about that number 68 pick, but we've been going a while. We've been going a while here. How long has it been? 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's definitely the longest I've live streamed. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for showing up, and we'll talk again soon.